Welcome back to Fast Money. Consensus 2018, the world's largest Bitcoin and blockchain conference, came right here to New York City this week and was supposed to send cryptocurrencies to the moon, but instead they got wrecked. So what was it about Consensus? Why did everybody get that call wrong? Check out the performance of the cryptocurrencies this week. Bitcoin Cash down 18%, Ripple down 8%, Ethereum down 6%, while Litecoin and Bitcoin both fell 5%. We're joined now by FundStrat's Tom Lee, who was the first strategist to put out the call that Consensus would lift Bitcoin and the other cryptos. Tom, what did you miss on this call?
Well, I think clearly we were too optimistic. We were expecting Consensus because there was a huge increase in size of the audience that given the uncertainty around Bitcoin for most of this year, with the wallet and regulatory overhang, that gathering a group of experts was going to reinvigorate confidence. But instead, I think we saw that there was a large audience. It was probably a little tougher for folks to sort of, discern the underlying message, and that because we didn't get regulatory clarity, I think there was some problem.
So I saw on Twitter you're responding to somebody who was asking you about your call on Consensus, and basically you mentioned did you think that we were going to get regulatory clarity? Because you said that was one area that fell short. Also, the number of custodial announcements fell short. There's some other things. Did you think that Consensus would be that much of a breakthrough event for this industry?
Well, to be clear, what we thought would be a risk was if there was something that could push the regulatory picture incrementally negative. The absence of that would have been positive. And I think, in general, I kind of would say on balance, I think there was a slight negative tilt to the regulatory outlook. That because it was going to take longer than most expected to really get some certainty.
So, Tom, you wrote in a note this morning about the institutional uptake. So the big thing that we've been talking about is when's custody going to be coming? We got a couple of those announcements today. Now the task is getting the people at the institutions to buy in. There's usually, my experience, one little group. When do you think that happens?
It's going to take time. There was some really good news on the custodial progress. Nomura, as a bank, actually becoming a custodian. But on the flip side of that is the institutions not only have to have a team that's enthusiastic about adopting cryptocurrencies, they have to essentially evangelize internally. And I think that we've got sort of that first step. I think there are more institutions interested, but again, it's going to take some time to sort of get the whole firm to buy in. What
on the regulatory front disappointed you?
Again,
Why was it more negative?
I think we need to be nuanced here. If we look at regulatory, we don't want to simply look at what we expect them to announce. I don't think that's was going to be expected, but it was really understanding how people were shaping their views around regulatory, or how they would interpret incremental data or the lack of incremental data. And,
is there an example that you can give us? It sounds a little squishy. Are you talking about things like whether or not Ethereum is a security or
Well, I'll give you some examples of the
commodity,
kind of sidebar conversations that were taking place. One is that, CME, it's great that they're going to have another contract for another cryptocurrency for Ethereum. And the fact that when they finally turn on live is clearly, in some ways, a signal that Ethereum is likely to be viewed as a utility token. So in other words, there's going to be signal in the sense that if CME is actually, when they go live with this contract, it's actually something else. But on the flip side, I think there's a lot of side conversations about how people feel about their last conversation with regulators. And I think on balance, it just didn't feel like things were moving forward.
Tom, of course, from the standpoint of the amount of money that's come in over the past year versus last year's conference, or since last year's conference, is the bar just that much higher now? Ethereum was trading around 100, 120 bucks last year. The expectations for what was going to come out, has the bar just been set higher and higher and higher to the point where we really needed something earth-shaking to really move the market, to move these
well, first of all, I want to come out and say I think Consensus was a huge success. Yeah. I think it's a great conference to bring a lot of people together from around the world, and I think the quality of the people that were there, Brian, you were there, it's amazing. It's like, it's the people that are important to this industry coming together, but also a lot of decision makers incremental. So I think it was a great success that way. But to get the right synergy or for this group to kind of gel and make deals, it's growing pains. This conference tripled in size compared to a year ago. So I think it's unfair to kind of blame consensus for what's happened. I think maybe everyone, including myself, was a little optimistic.
You sound a little bit more cautious. I want to take a look at the Bitcoin misery index because this is one of your proprietary things. It's now what, at 30 versus
yes,
a low of
30
18.
is good news, actually.
So people are less miserable, but people have to be happy or the opposite of miserable in order to get to your forecast of 25,000 for Bitcoin. Are you sticking by that forecast?
Yes.
What takes us there then?
Yeah, absolutely. So I still think that we have to keep in mind is that Bitcoin at 8,000 and Bitcoin, let's say we think can reach 25,000, it doesn't require Bitcoin to go up every day till the end of the year.
Sure.
Remember, the 10 best days account for all the return of Bitcoin. If you didn't own Bitcoin for 10 days each year, you lost 25% a year since 2010. So clearly Bitcoin is something where only a handful of days account for the gains. So I think it's really good news that the Bitcoin Misery Index, which dropped to 18, which is awful, a month ago is now back to 30. It's acting more consistently, but it is among the 16 currencies we watch, the worst cryptocurrency on the Misery Index level. So EOS is the highest and Bitcoin is the lowest.
All right, Tom, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Tom Lee of Fundstrat. You got to give him props for coming by and owning
man.
up to the call, right? Yeah. In terms of what you thought of the conference, did you come away with the same sort of impressions?
Yeah, listen, I had 3 takeaways from it. For me, the number one takeaway, which I think will probably surprise everybody, crypto's thriving in China. Even though it's so-called banned, there is a lot of development going on there. Number 2, the custody solution. We have plenty of those right now. And then number 3, coming out of it, the last one, so the adoption, right? There's this big divide. Adoption's happening in Asia, where development's happening here in the U.S. So we in the U.S. might try to figure out how we're using this in Asia, in Korea, in Japan, in the Philippines, Southeast Asia. It is booming. So those were the 3 takeaways from me. I actually came out incrementally more positive, and going into it, I was the most excited I've been in a long time about this space.
I don't know. I don't know.
Is that one of your biggest wishes?
Yeah.